Who are you and what's your best advice?
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich, and my best advice on this show is rather than complain about it, maybe you should get up and do something about it. And that came from Dr. Philip Squires, CEO of Consalia Sales Business School. So it's happy to be here with you guys today.
Yay! So that's great advice. So the business school. So you were in school, or you were a co-teaching, or when did that happen, Grant?
My friend, I went back to school at 47 years, a young age of 47 in 2018. So yeah, facing change, it was excruciating. So very hard to try to focus on to do, but it was fun. It was fun. It was well worth it.
Awesome. And do you use that advice every day? Do you change things, or do you just complain
That's
about it?
exactly what I do. I have a global career in sales, but I'm frantically moving over into change management and change leadership. In the sales program, I created the world's first bespoke personal change model. So if you think of change and organizational change, there's tons of models in the world for companies to use on people. But in the university, I actually raised my hand to my professors. I said, "Where's the model for the individual?" And they said, "That really doesn't exist. You might need to create it." So I did.
That's fantastic. Well, cool. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm super duper excited about that. That is super cool. So, your thought here, and I have to tee this up right correctly, is it's scared. So what? So,
Yeah.
what the heck does that mean? Take us through the beginnings of how you figured that out. And then we're going to bust down the model and break it apart and talk all about it.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And I got to give a shout out. Alex Abbott is on. He is so amazing. So it's fun to be with him as well, too. Thanks for joining in, Alex. But scared, so what? So again, if you look at what we were trying to do in the Sales Masters program, but let me back up there. It is the world's first Masters in Science for sales. Go figure that out. All
Cool.
of the right, all the other areas like human resources, IT, tech, operations, accounting, you can go get your doctorate degree all the way up to, and all different types of degrees. But why not in sales? And so it's a rarity. There's, I think, just about 150 of us who have graduated the master's program. It's here in London with Middlesex University, but part of that is right in the heart of it is module 4. And as sales leaders, global sales leaders of companies, we had to learn about how do you drive change and how do you drive change management, right? That makes sense. So we learned about all the organizational change models that are out there, which there are a lot. And it just wasn't sitting with me. My professors were saying, this is what you have to do. This is what you're going to learn. This is what your assignments are on. And I just thought, I don't like this. And I'm the only American in class, right? So this is with senior leaders of industry from all over the world. And here I am, the one Yankee sitting in the room. So I raised my hand to my professor and I said, I am so sorry. I don't mean to be flip or disrespectful, but I don't get this. And they're like, oh, great. What's going on here? You're a grown adult. You lead in a major global corporation for sales around the world. You should be getting this. And I said, yeah, I get what you're trying to do. But these models are all prescriptive and they go through an archway and it says at the end of it, you're magically going to accept the change. And that's not true. And they said, well, what do you mean that's not true? And I said, it's not true. I'm a human being. I can accept change. I can reject change. And you know what? Until this moment, as a senior leader, I never asked my people if they accept change or reject it at all. And these models don't reflect that. So I was in real time looking at my own leadership style, which was very transactional, and focusing on you need to do this, you need to do that. And if I have a change process, you're just going to do what I tell you to do. Now, I'm happy to say that there was a lot more to me, and I think people a lot liked and followed along. However, that was the real aha moment. And my professor said, well, Grant, if you don't like the models that are out there, then perhaps instead of complaining about it, you should go and do something about it. So why don't you make a new model? And that's where it was born. So I started my research project was on fear management, fear of change management. What is the effects to the human mind and the human body when it happens, positive change or negative change. And then I embraced, because at the center of that was scared, feared, right? And you've got an actual clinical diagnosis called metathisophobia. Try to say that really on a cocktail or what have you, but metathisophobia. And it is the chronic fear of change, and it's crippling for people. So it was a great point for me to start at and say, well, what if people could embrace their fears? What if people could start to reflect on being scared of change? Or what if there was a process for us to break that down? Exactly, metathesophobia, the fear of change. And that's where we put the science to it and started to create it. And it just came out that the acronyms actually worked. Scared. So how do you address your feelings? And I'll go through the model if you'd like, but this is how the process actually started there in university. It was just born out of pure, almost rebellion.
I love that. And I love that it relates to sales, right? And it relates really to everything, but we're going to talk kind of how it relates to sales folks. And I think about that, and I think about my own sales experience. And I will tell you, seldom do people say, so how do, are you going to accept this change? It's more like, no,
Oh, yeah.
you did. And here you go. Let's move forward, right?
Yeah, it was more like in leadership, it's you just get on with it, just do it. And that happens every day in our lives. And you think back to yourself, Phil, and to your audience listening in, have you ever been taught how to manage personal change for yourself?
Not a chance.
And isn't that funny? Something that happens to every one of us on the planet every day of our lives, we don't know how to manage that. And we haven't even thought about that. But yet we have an abundance of models to be used in the organization to guide us and tell us exactly where we're supposed to go. But as a human being, I have feelings. So again, when you were younger, Phil, did you ever go to your mom, dad, brother, sister, whoever it was, your family support, or even your teachers or professors, and you had a change situation and you just went, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. And you're stressed, you're breathing heavy, you're nervous, maybe you're losing a job, getting married, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, positive or neutral, your body reacts the same. You're stressed, right? And if you ask them or what are you supposed to do? What did they say to you, Phil?
Well, sometimes it was, suck it up, rub a little dirt on it. That was it. Or, I don't know, what do you think?
Exactly. Just get on with it. Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. For me, it was, Grant, shut up and just go. And I'm making fun. But, get on with it. You hear that a lot. Why? Because they haven't been taught how to manage personal change themselves. And so it's so critical. If we could actually stop and we had a model to say, well, let's break down this change for you. Let's look at your feelings so that you can make an informed decision rather than an assumption. And we know that where that gets us. And then once you've made a decision about the change, so what are you going to do? What's your own so what? What could you do? And I can go in and tell you about how you do that. But the joy of it is it works. We've been using it across the world now since its inception in 2019. And actually, when I developed it, we all went through a massive change called the global pandemic, right? So in the cruise industry, we went from 62 ships, hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue to zero revenue. There was massive change. And it stayed that way for 2 years. Travel agents across the world lost their jobs, shut down, people stopped traveling. So change was massive. And that was a beautiful place. I hate to say that, but it was a beautiful place to test a model like this.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, right? Don't ever waste a good crisis.
Yeah,
It's the opportunity
exactly.
to invent and refresh and come up with new things and be new. But one of the things that you said there really stuck out to me, and that is positive, neutral, or negative change is all the same.
Yeah,
Talk to me about that. Go deeper on that, Grant, because that's interesting, right? I
yeah,
think positive change should be like, yay! But it's all stress.
exactly. Yeah. But so think about it like, positive change. You're getting married. Isn't it funny how the groom is always standing there looking like 3 shades of green and purple, and is he going to pass out? And sometimes they do. The happiest moments of your life can be the most stressful moments of your life. Getting a new job, buying your first house, moving, starting over, buying major products and services, getting new friends, going over to a friend's house for a social engagement or a social gathering. And it's just so interesting that positive change, if you look at how the mind works, it's still stress, it's still energy, it's still angst and anxiety. So again, getting married, getting a new job, you're breathing heavier. Maybe you get goosebumps, sweats, cold sweats, nervousness, anxiety. It's a positive thing, yeah. But your body's telling you something's wrong. And so again, whether you're the groom or the bride, you're going to your friends and they're like, oh, it's going to be the best day. Why does it feel like it's right here? I don't know how to deal with this, and I don't know how to actually talk about it, right? And so it doesn't matter if it's positive, neutral change. Neutral change means I'm indifferent. And even though at this moment I'm processing what's happening to me, I don't have a reaction either way. So I'm just kind of going with the flow until something actually reaches out that I can identify with. And there will be along the way. And negative change, you understand, is obviously negative. I'm rejecting this change, or I don't understand it and I need more information. So as a human being, when you have organizational change models flowing through saying this is the prescriptive way it's going to go, I say the human being needs more. They need help actually getting through the different types of change that's happening to them. And that process just hasn't existed.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So I know it's meant to be a little cheeky here, but Marcus says Kanban is not always the answer. And I think that's so interesting, right? The Kanban boards that we think are so linear, so perfect for this, they're not enough. They're not
Yeah.
always the answer. As human beings, we do inject our own feelings, our own emotions, our own additional stress into
Mm-hmm.
an organization like that. So let's talk about this, Grant. Let's go. So you mentioned the first part is the scared piece, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
scared. I'm afraid of good or bad, right? And I
Yeah.
need
And
to
yeah.
accept or what?
So the key is you don't have to be scared to use the model. You just have to understand its guiding points. There, like I said, there's positive change, neutral change, and negative change across the energy spectrum of what you might be feeling. You use the word scared, SCARED. And so it is, am I surprised about the change? Am I conflicted about the change, or do I champion the change? Again, starting to use as a methodology to coach yourself. And in the heart of it is, what actions can I do to generate information? So again, instead of having assumption, cause, or panic, you want to start to break the change down and critically reflect on it so that you're starting to take control of your change scenario and situation. Just like in sales, we know in sales that action is where everything is, right? The actions we do in sales leads to revenue generation or buying habits. So that's the same thing with finding out information for yourself. Generating action could be asking questions, asking a friend, doing some research, reading, Google search, whatever it may be, but anything to avoid assumptions so that you're generating information. By then, you're starting to say, am I more receptive to this change, or do I reject this change? And either way, it's okay, because not every change you have to accept, right? And that's what's bucking against the traditional models, because the traditional models say you're going to go through a process and at the end the change is executed. That's just not true. And in leadership, how many times do we ask people, are you on board with this change? We just don't. We tell them transactionally what to do instead of transformationally and getting in and utilizing coaching methodologies to support the people. So again, if you understand which direction you're going, then like actions, you want to explore any other options or opportunities and say, do I have all of the information that I need before I can make a decision? And there are 3 points that hit again on decision. Positive decision is, I'm favorable for this change. I like it and I can move forward. And that's excellent. You've made an informed decision versus an assumptive one. And that's the direction where you want to go if you want to be able to start to manage personal change for yourself. But then there's also the opposite, which is a negative decision. And that can be one of 2 ways. Either A, if you took the test, the scared quiz that's inside the app, to visually see how you're feeling about that change. If it's a rejection, you might see that you haven't put any actions or explored any options. If that's the case, you owe it to yourself to get information so that you can make a better decision. But likewise, you could also be rejecting a change, and that's fine. That's totally okay, because we don't accept every change that happens to us. But you're still going to be left saying, well, so what? And so what can I do about it? You're searching for a plan or a sense of meaning about the change. There's also a third element that's stuck in there in the middle, and it's called indecision. And how many times have you ever felt this? Hey, Phil, I just don't know what to do. Can't you just tell me what to do? I'm stuck. I have no idea what to do with this situation. That's called indecision. And it means you're missing information that will help you to make a better decision. And so that is the scared process, looking at your feelings. Now, it's not a linear model. It can't be a linear model because, as you just said, we don't think and we don't learn in that way. So it's designed to be flexible. It goes up and down across energy spectrums, and you are in control over your model journey. So again, I didn't want to make something out of science that follows traditional org change. This is individual change, the way individuals, people think and work. From there, you're going into what is your so what? And so what is your strategy? What are your options? Actually taking the time to critically think, what are they? How are you going to execute this change? Do you have a way forward? Then you pause and say, do I have hope or do I know how I'm going to execute this change? And why hope? People say, well, why is hope in there? Well, hope is a motivator. If you don't have a personal motivation or any emphasis behind what you're doing, it's going to go nowhere. But if you do feel a sense of hope, then great. How are you going to execute the change? What actions will you take? And finally, what will you do to take ownership? What milestones will you do? Is it emailing somebody? Is it visiting with somebody? Or is it simply congratulating yourself that you did it? You executed your change in the way you want. And so that's the scared so what process of managing personal change. Yeah.
Wow. Definitely have never learned that before reading your book. Definitely have never heard of that. And yet, as you say it, it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's so much there that we can break down. Which one of those and you're probably going to tell me it's individual, but which one of those have you found in your research or your work that is the hardest one that people don't do the most?
Actually, it's really interesting because people are individual. Individualistic, I should say. We surveyed over 1,180 people across Europe, Middle East, and Africa on their use of the model and also their feelings and suggestions for the model. And some really insightful information came from the interviews. About 50% of them said, I'm not worried about the so what. I want to understand how I feel about change. And I like that because it gives me clarity of thought. I like the fact that I can make an informed decision versus an assumptive one. So that was very insightful for them. But likewise, the other side of the spectrum, again, almost 50-50 straight up. They said, I don't care about feelings. I want to know what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it. And I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. I just want to get on with it because that's what I've been programmed and that's what I've been told to do with life. Just get on with it. How do I do that? So then we asked them, we said, but do you think both of them should be used? And are both models helpful, which creates one model together? 96% came back and said, yes, you must use both together to get the full benefit of managing personal change. And then another 98% came back and said, you can use this for coaching and leadership. And actually, you should. So leadership, managers, supervisors, coaches, human resource professionals, they should get behind to understand so that they can coach, guide, and support their teams in managing personal change at work. And it's funny you said sales. Sorry, you were going to say?
No, go.
It's funny you were saying sales. This was born in my sales master's program and continued throughout my master or throughout the doctorate as well too. And people say, what about salespeople? Salespeople are superstars. They're rock stars. They're a different breed. And I say, yeah, that's true. But what's behind them? Oh, surprise, a human being. And they feel. So imagine the salesperson and their unique role. They are stuck uniquely square in between the business and the B2B customers and B2C customers. They're ping-ponged back and forth between the pressures of the business. We want these KPIs. We want these quota from you. We want these revenue results from you. At no cost, go get it. But then the customer, they ghost you nowadays. They're not responding to typical ways of sales approaches. They no longer respond to the 1980s tips and tricks to overcome, manipulate, and close, as we always hear. That's just gone. People don't live there in that world today. So a salesperson where this was born for made sense. But then as we rolled it out across the world, it was going to our customers, to their families, to their friends. And it just started dominoing that realistically, over the last 5 years, it applies to just about anybody who can read and understand English as it's written today.
Yeah. Wow. it's just amazing to me, the simplicity of it and yet the complexity of it. So
Yeah.
you talked about the app, though. I'm going to share the screen here and show what this oh yeah, that's okay. So hold on one sec. No, I'm not. All right, never mind. I'm not going to share the screen, but you can go to scaredsowhat.com and check out the app. It's really cool. It's even on the home page, so you can put that up. Really cool. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Grant's got a little thing there, so you could scan the QR code as well if that works for you. But scaredsowhat.com is all about the app. So Grant, let's talk about the app a little bit and what's inside there, because ideally, and friends, if you're doing this just for you, it's free. Like
Yeah.
Grant wants you to download this and check it out and play with it and understand it for yourself, because you're an individual, you're a human. You do this, and hopefully it will help you. So let's talk about the app. What's inside the app?
Yeah, and you're so right. And people have told me, they're like, Grant, you're crazy. You're in sales, and you should be listing this for 99 pounds per person per year. Are you nuts? I said, look, I've been fortunate to learn in the master's and the doctoral program, and to be able to write the book and create the app and share it for people. In my heart, I want to give it to people. So that's why you're absolutely right. The app is free for all individuals, whomever can scan it, whomever can use it. It's there. It's available for you to use, and I want you to use it. For corporations, if you can afford a cup of coffee for your employee, well, guess what? It's less than that to license it. So give them the cup of coffee, but give them a tool that will transform their lives. And the app itself, it's the first app that allows you to learn how to manage personal change for yourself, but then also manage it for yourself. So in the first part of the app, you're watching a series of videos and tutorials, and it's teaching you exactly what is personal change and why it's different from organizational change. And then you go right into, are you ready to manage your own change situation that's happening to you? And you can take the scared quiz. So inside the app, you can actually name what your situation is. So let's say I'm getting a new job. So new job. And then you go through and you start to answer 30 questions. And they sound very repetitive, but it's done this way on purpose so that we can narrow down and actually guide you into telling your own truth. And when you do that, it populates a results, SCARED, and it shows you positive or negative, exactly where you stand. If it's green, it means it's feeling favorable. If it's red, it means you're leaning towards rejection. And if it's gray, you're stuck in indecision in the middle. When you click on each one of the elements, it then goes into a deep dive, and an expert comes on and tells you exactly what your scores mean. So it gives you your first visual representation, pulling the thoughts and the fear of the change from your head into an app and actually giving you the ability to share it, talk with somebody, say, this is how I'm feeling about this. Now you're getting more information. Now you start to make a better decision, an informed decision. Once you've done that, it saves your quiz, and you can take it over and over and over again as you get more information. So you can save them all, you can delete them, you can do whatever you want. But then you can build your own so what plan digitally. So it breaks it down for you. Again, we want you to be able to break down change so it's not scary, so that you can control it in bite-sized chunks. And you can actually start to digitally create your plan. And you can share that with people, talk with people, and say, this is how I feel I'm going to manage this change. Then it also gives you resources, links back to the books, the websites, all of our social media, where I'm talking with people around the world about change and change management. And yeah, so it's the first allowing you to manage personal change in the palm of your hand.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, great app. Lots of stuff there. Lots of stuff. I'm just gonna put your website up here as we talk a little bit longer. It's at scaredsowhat.com again. You can also get Grant's book, Transforming Sales Management, lead sales teams through change. You have a copy there. Lovely. Mine is behind me. I'm not going to be rude and grab it. Super awesome stuff. And folks, if you go to Grant's website, you can get 20% off. There's a nice code there from our friends at Kogan Page. So we certainly appreciate that. So Grant, what for you is the most important message that you want folks to get for sales leaders, for salespeople, about transforming that sales management so that they can manage their personal change better?
The biggest message that I want to share is my learning from the mastery and from the master's program and the doctorate. I thought I knew sales. I really, truly thought I understood sales. I've been doing sales my whole life. I'm 52 now at broadcast of this interview. But it wasn't until I went into the master's I started to learn about the science and the psychology behind sales. And in my doctorate, I created another model, and that is a leadership model. I haven't yet published that. Actually, it comes out this month in the International Journal of Sales Transformation. So they've done a 10-page report on my doctoral thesis and leadership. And that is the biggest piece. How do you lead people? As a sales leader and a sales professional, too often I find people leadership with the transactional leadership approach solely as their main tool and how they lead people. And if you don't understand the difference, transactional is I'm telling you what to do, you're following me, and I'm taking all of the credit for me and my teams. So supervisors, leaders, brand presidents, I'm the one who did it all, regardless of the people that are below me. Now, nobody would outright tell you and say that in person, but deep behind, that's exactly what you see. And how many times, Phil, have you said about a supervisor, oh my gosh, they're speaking again, but I am not following them, but I don't have any choice, right? I've just got
Too
to
much.
suck it up and follow along. And you get about 50% of people when you do that. Versus transformational leadership, it's harder. So a transformational leader takes off their jacket, sits down with the employees. They utilize coaching as their main methodology in true open-ended questions to foster ownership and development of the employee and lift that employee up. I often have, and I often say, and anybody out there who knows me across the globe, which is a lot of people in the cruise industry, if you can imagine, but every one of my right hands, I have always told them, my job is to give every single thing that I know to you so that you can grow and prosper. And one day I hope that I work for you and you'll remember me. But if you want my job, I'm going to teach you how to get it. And I hope you take it and fly higher. That is transformational leadership. It can be practiced by anybody. It can be practiced at any level, but you have to actually work harder. And then when the credit comes, you give it to the team. You measure yourself by the success of your team members. And that is hard. It is very hard to do. If you want to learn a great tool and how to do that, then you need to learn how to foster and manage personal change. Scared So What will help you do that. It's free for individuals to do. Download the app, play with it, start to learn about it, start to ask questions and engage. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Phil, this is how Phil and I met. I mean, he's just amazing. But utilize the best social selling tool that's out there, which in business is LinkedIn, and start to get on it and start to communicate and lead, but lead differently.
Love that. Great suggestion. So, friends, if you've been listening and you're like, ooh, I got to get more, I encourage you, go to scaredsowhat.com, get a copy of Grant's book, Transforming Sales Management, Lead Sales Teams Through Change, download the app, and stay tuned because we're going to talk again about the leadership piece and how sales leadership can change as well. So, Grant, thanks for part 1. I can't wait to have part 2 with you soon.
Sounds great. Take care, Phil. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you too. Thank you.